Oh my goodness. Ryan, I'm lost for words now. I'm even a little emotional. I mean, from day one, we've been covering this UConn women's basketball team since Paige Becker's arrived in stores. And I tell you what, man, I told you before I came on, I'm like, Ryan, I don't know. And here I am finding myself already. I can't even find words to do the introduction. It's Phil and Ryan on Listen Up, presented by Dempsey's and Sportsland. As we just witnessed, Ryan, a double overtime thriller. I mean, an absolute thriller. And if you're not a true sports fan, Ryan, I tell you what, you most likely probably won't be watching this game 20 years. But if you are a true sports fan, you said it. You'll be watching this game. They'll be watching this 20, 30, 40 years from now. I mean, this arguably it's going to arguably go into top 10, top 5, one of the best games in program history. Ryan, number 2 UConn tops number 1 North Carolina State 91-87. Historic double overtime game, and we have it all for you right here. Instant reaction with Phil and Ryan. Ryan, I'm afraid, like always, you're going to have to help me out on where to start. I don't know, man. I really don't. It looks like obviously people have been, well, Phil don't know what he's talking about all season long. Hey, you're probably right, but this time I'm lost for words, right? I don't know where to start.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know either. I'm left speechless too. Like I told you during the game, this is an instant classic. And the reporter said on the sideline that Gino said before the game, no team was going to lose this game because I guess he just knew that it was going to be such a good game that neither team really lost. But there was going to be one player that stepped up for one team.
Yeah.
That was going to make them win. And for UConn, that was Paige Becker's in overtime. I mean, just an insane overtime from UConn, just an insane game overall. But of course, before we get into it, I want to mention the Dorka injury that happened about halfway through the second quarter. Prayers up to her and hope for a speedy recovery. But there's no report yet, official report of what happened. But obviously, if you watch the game, you could see it was a wrist injury, and it looked like a compound fracture. So very, very unfortunate for UConn. I'll probably make a video later this week detailing, how it's going to affect them going forward in this tournament.
But for now, man, let's just enjoy this. I mean, how could you not? No matter if you guys are tuning in, watching us again, we love you all. We appreciate you all tuning in and watching. And your all support all season long, and especially tonight. Hey, I mean, the ceiling is really high. And I mean, whether you're watching from at home in Connecticut on the comfort of your couch, whether you're watching or listening, driving home on the way from the game, I know bet a lot of traffic, right? Going home from this one, Ryan. I mean, we heard that it was like 10,000 plus at this one.
Yes.
And I mean, they were talking about, well, how's that? They're like, oh, how's that any fair to UConn being like only, I think it's like 80 miles away from their own home arena. And like North Carolina State had to travel like what, 500 plus miles. So, hey, sometimes life's unfair, right? But I mean, oh my gosh, this ball game was fair in all aspects, we jumped so much on the referees. I mean, there were some questionable calls, but all around it was like, and Gino said it right in the post game. This is the definition of great basketball. This was, no matter if it was for WNBA, NBA, you name it, any basketball league, this was great for the game of basketball. And I'm sure, people that are not that much into sports, they tune. And this is what I love about it. This is what I've been telling you from day one, Ryan, preaching to specifically you about this. It changes lives. People that might not have been into basketball 8 hours ago might catch this game and they're like, oh my gosh, man, I'm going to really start watching basketball.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, just an instant classic. And you could really tell from the beginning how competitive of a game it really was. Especially throughout that second half. It was back and forth. Like I said, when Dorka went out with that injury, NC State really started to pound the inside and get their bigs going. Edwards and Nelson Odota had 3 fouls in the third quarter there. Nelson Odota picked up her 4th foul in the fourth quarter. And a lot of the momentum shifted to NC State, and that's why I give so much props to UConn in this game. They stayed with it, even though the momentum looked like it was shifting all to NC State. They stuck with it, and they stuck in the game. They kept trading baskets back and forth in the fourth quarter. Such an exciting game to watch for all, like you mentioned, all college basketball fans all around the world. And I mean, UConn somehow was able to. NC State had a chance to win the game there at the end of the game. They missed their shot.
Yeah.
And like I just said, Paige Beckers just took over in that overtime period. She had 15 points just in overtime. Didn't miss any foul shots. Foul shots were a problem for UConn throughout the whole entire game. And they really clutched up there in overtime. That was a big part in why they were able to hold on and win.
Yeah, I don't. As you speak, I'm listening to you, but at the same time, a million different things are rolling through my mind. And usually, this is not the case. I'll be honest with you. When we've gone on these recaps, I just don't know. I mean, so first of all, I want to shout out to Dorka Juhas. You don't believe me? Go back and look at the previous episodes that we've had. She has been one of, if not, I mean, Paige Beckers, obviously, it's everyone's favorite. How could she not be? Dorka Juhas has been 100% one of my game-changing players in this season. The transfer from Ohio State, correct, Ryan?
Right.
And I specifically pointed her out video after video that we have done. I could actually relate to Paige Beckers and the players as she went down holding that wrist. All I could do was just stare at the TV. You know, I mean, it's like air just taken right out of me. So shout out to her. I hope she has a speedy recovery. I don't know the extent of the injury or what it is, but I'm guessing that's the last that we've seen of her. I'm only guessing. Nothing official has come out yet. I'm guessing that's the last that we have seen. The last time that we possibly have seen her play on the court, Ryan, this season. But I just want to shout out to her. And I mean, she has been a game changer for this team. A game changer, and that's to say the least. I mean, because we talk again. How many times, Ryan, did I go on these game recaps and I said, Ryan, Dorka Juhas, such a big body in the paint. You know, how are teams going to get around her because she guards so well? Ryan, Dorka Juhas had how many rebounds and assists tonight? She didn't lead in scoring. No, one of the games that she did. I can't remember who they played, but one game she did lead in scoring. But it just seemed like, Ryan, I could not go on an episode without mentioning, hey, Ryan, how about Dorka Juhas? And definitely it's devastating to lose her down the stretch, especially with these last two. I mean, these last two games, if they win the next one, it'll be a second. But I mean, you tell me, you're very concerned. You know, we'll say, I know it's hard to keep the concerns on hold, but you're concerned because of the matchup that Stanford potentially brings. And then without Dorka Juhas in the paint, I mean, oh man. I mean, I don't want to say anything negative now because this was a great game. Congratulations to Gino, the entire staff, the players. They deserved this. And I'm sure a lot of people can argue, Phil, they deserve a national title. I will go as far as saying that because look at everything that they've gone through this year. But again, if they fall short, you're going to look back on this game and this season, just because of what happened tonight, in my eyes, and this is a very positive outlook. I mean, you tell me what you think. In my eyes, I could say this much, Ryan. Usually, and you know Phil very well. You know me we grew up together, obviously cousins, right? How many times does Phil say that a season is highly accomplished and a season is successful without winning a championship? I can strongly make that argument to anybody who wants to come back at me and say, look, even if they fall short of the national title, it was still major success. And that's big because guess what? You had Paige Beckers on your team for at least 2 more years. And again, Ryan, and I'll let you go. I just wanted to get this in very quickly. For people that was jumping on my case very quickly about the last episode, it seemed like I was kind of hopping on the case of Paige Beckers slowing down. What I was trying to say, Paige Beckers, I knew she had more talent in her than what we were seeing. And it came out tonight. Ryan, players in sports 9 times out of 10, 99% of the time, are defined by their clutch legacy performances in the games that matter most. And I knew that she had it in her. This was her biggest moment since returning from that injury. And for the people that was jumping on my case saying, well, why are you jumping on her case so much? And why are you saying such negative things about Paige Beckers? No, I was not. Ryan, I was trying to tell you, I know Paige can play better than that. And she did. Amen. Amen. Can I get an amen, Ryan?
Yeah, well, she scored 27 points to lead the team, and she was pretty much the reason why they were able to hold on to win the game, because, like I said, she was almost unstoppable through really the whole second half and both overtime. She only missed one shot after the halftime period. So, but getting back to the season, and if they don't win the championship, Gino said it himself in an interview during the season. He's been in UConn for 37 years. And they asked him how hard this season was. He said it himself, this is the hardest season he's ever gone through. And he's been in UConn for 37 years. So that just says it right there, how hard the season has been with COVID and through all the injuries. We said it 100 times over and over again. So I would agree that, tonight winning this game, making it to the Final Four, this is already a successful season. And moving forward, without Dorka, the biggest reason why I say it's going to be a challenge is just because obviously she doesn't start, right? But for her coming off the bench, and she's a 3-point threat as well. Like you mentioned, she gets offensive rebounds. She plays defense very, very well. But like we saw tonight, I mentioned Edwards and Nelson Adota getting in foul trouble. And these two matchups coming up are, maybe only one with Stanford. But if UConn plays South Carolina in the championship game, and even in this Final Four game coming up with Stanford, to me, I just don't. It's going to be very, very challenging for Nelson Adota and Aaliyah Edwards to not get into foul trouble like they did tonight. Because once they pick up 3-4 fouls, they can't play really, really tough physical defense like we're used to seeing, because they can't foul out of the game. Because if one of them fouls out, they have to bring Avina Westbrook in. And they default to a smaller lineup, which makes it a lot harder to be able to guard those players that are 6'6", 6'7" on Stanford and South Carolina. So, and for NC State, give props to them as well. They played a tremendous game tonight. They had an incredible season to be able to get back to the Elite Eight. Amazing job all around for NC State tonight. But for me, NC State, I'm surprised that they didn't try to go down low even more because, with Dorka coming out and, Edwards, Nelson Adota, they were in foul trouble. And to me, they have a really good player in and Kukane down there on the post. And I'm just surprised that they then just go to her a little bit more. But regardless, it was a great, great game. And I'm very interested to see how moving forward, the UConn bigs are going to be able to stay out of foul trouble.
So shout out to, before I forget, shout out to, I know we always love to cover the announcers for each game, or at least we tried to. Shout out to ESPN's Ryan, Rebecca Lobo, and then Holly Rowe. Yeah. Man, I mean, they can you imagine being on the call of that one? I mean, oh man, that's what you live for, right? I mean, those are the games that you obviously you live for. Not every announcer is going to admit it, but those are the games that you live for, man. And that all the practice, all the time, your diet, what you do in the gym, what you do out of the gym. People don't realize, man. I mean, that it all adds up. And in the end, man, Ryan. Yeah. So yeah, again, just going back what you had mentioned about North Carolina State, the Wolfpack. Shout out to, a lot of first for them this season. I mean, and shout out to head coach Wes Moore for keeping his ladies together during the whole season, and especially in this ball game. I mean, he doesn't want to hear it now, but I'll tell you, he deserves a lot of credit for doing something that not a lot of teams or head coaches can do. And that's when every time UConn had an answer and it looked like they would be pulling away in this ball game, no, because like I told you, North Carolina State was a team that was defined by them. And you told me not giving up, not saying any team gives up, but they were a team known in this tournament, in this bracket, for arguably the ones that the comeback kings, right?
Right.
And they almost did it. They almost did it, but not quite, not against such an historic program in UConn. But you're right, Ryan. And then you mentioned about there in North Carolina State, most likely they're going to go back and look at tape on this game when they're ready to, once the emotions come full circle. And you have to imagine they're going to be asking themselves, would it be a different outcome if they, and of course, UConn came out a little bit sloppy too, right? I mean, you said that, but you have to wonder, Ryan, I had in my notes, the travels and the turnovers by North Carolina State. And that's something that's more or less mentally, because it seemed like UConn, and they do it such a good job, they get in your head. They get in your head at the beginning of ball games. And as I couldn't wait to see what you had to say about this one, because that's something that you need to work on as a team. That's not and nothing to do at all physically with the opposing team stealing the ball away from you, turnovers. It's almost, especially travels. I mean, how do I understand full of UConn fans in there? But I mean, that's really no excuse for this North Carolina State team.
Yeah, and like we were talking during the game, NC State had about 4 or 5 travels in the paint, posting up, and they, instead of getting a layup or getting a shot, at the basket, they traveled and turned the ball over. So it just seemed like to me NC State really was beating themselves for most of the game. And in the first quarter, first half especially, they left the UConn players with wide open shots. And I talked about before in games before how important that was for UConn to get open shots and knock them down. And they certainly did that. Kristen Williams had an amazing first half. And then Paige Beckers, of course, took over in the second half. But yeah, I mean, Asia as well. She had a great game as well, knocked down a couple of threes. But NC State just left UConn wide open too many times. Didn't play tight enough defense, in my opinion. Too many unforced errors. A lot of mistakes and unforced errors. That was huge out of NC State. Too many mistakes. And the rebounds and second chance points that NC State let UConn get. Way too many offensive rebounds as well. And we saw that out of the Indiana game. Indiana as well. They let UConn have way too many second chance points. I believe I wrote this down. UConn 14-0 in second chance points. So that just goes to show how many offensive rebounds UConn got. And like I said before, that's a huge part in why UConn's offense is so dominant, because of Aaliyah Edwards and Nelson Adota down low, getting those offensive rebounds and being able to reset their offense and getting 2 or 3 other shots up. And that really just kills the other team.
Yeah. And, again, this is nothing to do with the actual in-game stats, or actually nothing to do with following up with what you said, even though I hear you. But Ryan, it's just hard to focus. It's hard to focus after a double overtime thriller. That you really, I'm so glad they proved me wrong. You didn't mention it yet, but yes, Phil had UConn missing the Final Four. But they made it. They did it. Thank goodness they proved me wrong. I just, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it seems like unreal from the day one where we started covering them and these game recaps to us splashed in UConn gear, under the bright blue lights. It feels like I'm almost sitting on the floor with you right there celebrating with the team, man. I mean, this is amazing. And again, it all goes thanks to all of you all. Thanks to all of you for tuning in and watching each and every video, commenting, subscribing, and we cannot thank you enough. All the love and support, and you can bet Ryan and I. Ryan, you told me before I could even tell you I'm like, Ryan, we had to hop on a plane together and go up there to UConn the next season for a game, because I tell you what, not only the team, the coaching staff seems like a class act, so full of respect. But I tell you, these fans, man, I can't wait to meet some of these fans, because they seem like that they're pretty, they have some swag to them. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
They're
That's
full
for
of
sure.
swag, and they're just down to earth, great people. I know I have some. We have some back here in Maryland that are true UConn fans, and I tell you, I talk to them every once in a while, and I received messages during the first overtime and then the second overtime. Some of them were mixed. They were mixed feelings. They're like, okay, Phil, UConn's gonna lose this game, and other ones like, UConn's got it. I was like, and I wanted to text him back so bad right away. I'm like, no, I'm going to wait till the end of the game. But in the back of my mind, again, it's so great to see Paige Beckers return to her old self, at least for the time being. And, a big question for you, and I'm sure everyone else is wondering, Ryan, she got off to a slow start like we were seeing when she returned to injury. Or when she returned from injury, rather. And I think that's what sparked the ESPN article that come out earlier this week. Can they do it without Paige Beckers at 100%? So it was not only us wondering that, but at the same time, you have to ask yourself, question in the back of your mind, did Paige Beckers need double overtime to spark her and to get her going? And if that's the case, oh man, I mean, what a perfect time, huh? I mean, now the magic number is two.
Yeah, and what a perfect time it would be. That's exactly right, especially losing yet another player on the UConn team. So if anything, Paige Beckers needs to step up even more now for UConn. But I think, one thing is UConn doing it while Paige Becker was out during the regular season and being able to win the regular season conference championship for their conference. But it's a whole nother thing trying to win an NCAA championship without Paige Beckers being, 100%. But, certainly earlier in the game in the first half, she didn't look 100% to me. She was rushing her shots. She wasn't really getting her feet set. She was getting pretty good looks, I would say. Of course, every team tries to guard her as tight as she can because they know how big of a threat she is to everybody. But she was getting pretty good looks. She just couldn't quite knock them down. But I think in that second half, she just needed to see the ball go through the net. I think it was simple as that. And and once she saw it go through the net, she really didn't miss. She only missed that one shot in double overtime and hit those 6 clutch free throws. So yeah, I mean, if she could step up for this next game against Stanford in the Final Four, that would be huge. And I know I've been saying this whole time, Paige Beckers doesn't need to score 30 minutes or score 30
points.
30
Yeah.
points
No,
and
that's
play
it.
30
That's
minutes.
exactly what, not to cut you off, but that's exactly what I was saying. She plays great without scoring big. So
Yeah.
that's what I was trying to say in the last video, but I did, that was my apologies. I did not explain myself to the max like I should have. Can you imagine a Paige Beckers playing the great defense that she does, and with the ability to pass the ball to other players, assisting them in scoring? But then can you imagine, and again, you can't, if she's able to heat up behind the 3-point line or shoot the little fadeaway shots that we see her shoot so many times, especially in this game like she just did, you're going to have people out there that are going to say some negative things. But I'm telling you, if I'm Coach Gino right now, I'm putting the ball in her hand. You don't all the things about she's a ball hog and all she does is like to shoot the ball. Ryan, if she's heating up, give her the basketball.
Yeah, and like the reporters were saying on the game, Paige Beckers tells her teammates to keep shooting. AZ being a freshman,
right.
Kristen even being a senior, Paige Beckers
Yeah.
encourages her teammates to keep on shooting the ball, and they encourage her as well to keep on shooting. And Gina wants Paige to continue shooting the ball as well. So she's definitely going to continue to shooting, even though she might not be having the best shooting performance. But one other thing I want to bring up, when Nelson Adota had to sit in the first half, and some of the second half, she had two of those 2 and 3 fouls. In my opinion, I really started to see the ball movement kind of wither away from the UConn offense. And I think that's a reason why they lost that lead. And they were going back and forth because they didn't have any assists in the second half. So that was huge. And when UConn's passing the ball, getting all those assists, the give and go passes and the screens and the beautiful passes that we see Nelson Adota and all these players make for UConn. When UConn's not making those great passes and not getting assists, that's when I think the offense really starts to struggle. And that's when the defense intensity picks up. And that's when UConn really relies on their defense and the second chance points. So that's also another big concern I have for if Olivia Nelson Adota gets in foul trouble moving forward. I think you really start to see the ball movements kind of go away a little bit, but I think UConn will be able to figure it out. They almost have, probably, I think they have about 5 days until that matchup on Friday with Stanford. So I'm sure Gino will have something written up for them, but it should be another great game.
Yeah, and can I just say, I didn't finish. Can I just say, Dorka Juhas? I mean, it looked like she was primed for a big game tonight, and that's what really that even though with her being out and recovering, that's the whole nother story. But just talking in game, specifically in the game, that is a killer. That is a killer. I mean, if you're a head coach and the players, and just shout out to how the players responded, to see something like that, Ryan, to physically see something like that in person, because again, they showed an instant replay. We won't get into it now, but yeah, man, you know what I'm talking about. And to see a injury like that on the floor, and for UConn to keep their heads up like they did and play through it, because personally, Phil, I'm like, oh man, as soon as I saw her go down, not only are they missing Dorka now for the rest of the game, because I knew she was pretty much out the rest of the game. Not only are they missing her now in the paint, Ryan, and the great defense she plays, but how are you going to respond? There's always a certain point in sports and in games how you respond to certain situations. I'm telling you, I don't think Gino could be more prouder of this ball team, man. And Dorka, only 3 minutes, but she had 2 rebounds and 2 points, Ryan. So it looked like if she could have stayed in that whole game, that she and May been a big piece. And again, it may not even have gone into double overtime, because you heard Gino at the end of the game. I mean, Dorka was going off, starting straight out of the gate.
Yeah, and that's what I was just about to say. If Dorka was able, if she doesn't get injured, of course, we'll never be able to know. But in my opinion, if Dorka doesn't get injured, I don't think the game even goes into overtime. I think UConn's able to win in regulation. But yeah, I love that the response from the UConn players, because you could see when Dorka went down and she was crying as soon as she went down. I'm sure I can't imagine how painful that must have felt as soon as she went down like that. But you could see on the faces of all the UConn players that everybody was just stunned. Some were even in tears on the sideline. So to be able to continue to still play the game, an Elite Eight game in the NCAA tournament, just shows how relentless this team really is, and everything. That's pretty much a summary of everything this team has gone throughout the whole entire season. So for them to go through a double overtime game and to be able to hold off the number 1 seed in NC State and advance to the Final Four, it truly is pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say, I mean, because they're not really like a high seeded team like a Cinderella story. So I think it's safe to say I better stop talking about your glass slipper for now. We'll save that for maybe next season, when maybe a St. Peter's team makes it advances far into the tournament, men's. Maybe it happens to the women's next season, a team, but we'll save that glass slipper for next season. I'll tell you why, Ryan, because, this team is different. And I think Phil finally realizes that they're full of toughness, fight. They're just, man, I tell you, North Carolina State, a great ball team, but Connecticut, it's hard to put into words just how much more better Connecticut really is, because they had to be, Ryan. I mean, North Carolina State brought it to them.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, just the, like I said, just a summary of everything this team has gone through. It prepared them for this exact moment, for something like this to happen, and for them to continue to keep on fighting throughout the whole entire game. It really just showed how, and the coaching staff as well. I want to bring them up, how well they prepared this team, and Gino, how well they prepared the whole team for something like this to happen. And it just shows that, they were ready for this moment, and they were prepared to go to yet another Final Four. 14 straight Final Fours for UConn. Incredible.
And when you have this close of a ball game, it comes down. It really does. I mean, it comes down to free throws, and time of possession. So and that's what a good point there made by Rebecca Lobo at the end of the ball game. She said that UConn had some of its best players going to the foul line, and that's really what you need in close ball games. I mean, and it's funny because I told you earlier in this season how tough it is to come on game after game. Of course, we love to see UConn win, but at the same time, it's so tough to come on and try to recap a game where, okay, Ryan, we're recapping 10 straight ball games and the score is 90-40, or, let's say the score is 80-35. Yes, it's great. It's great for UConn fans. That's what they want to see: victories, right? Wins. But I tell you, these are the kind of ball games where it's fun to actually come on and recap, because there's so much more. I mean, I had a list of just papers, 2 or 3 papers here, and I know you had this. I could hear you typing away during the whole ball game, and I know you can relate. It's just a different type of. It's difficult. When you have them blowout victories, I don't hear you typing on your computer like that all season long up until tonight.
No, I mean, it's just so fun to watch for for everybody, especially for us as college basketball fans, just sports fans in general. When you get to witness a game like this, it is truly incredible. And really just have to soak in every moment of it, because you don't know when you're going to get another classic like this. But yeah, going back to the free throw trouble for UConn. They were only 1 of 8 in regulation from the free throw line. Paige Beckers was 6 of 6. I think AZ knocked down 2 of them in overtime. I believe Kristen Williams went 1 of 2 also. So that was huge for them to be able to bounce back in overtime and double overtime, to be able to hit their free throws. Because like I said before, I think that was a huge part in why they were able to win this game.
Yeah, well, I tell you, I hate to break it to you now, Ryan, because I was going to try to hold it back, but there is kind of a little surprise, hopefully for UConn fans to tune in to watch this podcast. I wasn't going to say anything. Hopefully she's fine with me saying something, but I have been in contact with Maria Marino, the UConn Huskies reporter,
Right.
and hopefully, Ryan, that she will come on as the season concludes and recap the whole season one day with us, Ryan. But I mean, talk about reporter, and it makes it so much more fun for reporters, right? I mean, to recap games like this. So I know, along with the whole staff up there, including her, they will have one heck of a night and one heck of a week talking about this one. But like you said, quick turnaround, because you have Stanford on the schedule, right?
Yeah, Stanford coming up on Friday nights. It doesn't get much easier for UConn, and I'm sure Gino will have them ready, but it's going to be another battle, I'm sure.
And then go figure. You told me the Final Four is being held in Minnesota. How many times? And I had to really open my ears up here, because I'm like, how many times do you hear, okay, Paige Beckers won, but she's still going back home?
Yeah. Yeah. She said, she heard all week long about if you lose, you go home, but she won and she's still going home to Minnesota. So it's just great that she's able
That's what
to.
that's all I
Yeah,
wanted to ask you. Like, can you imagine? I mean, that's a dream come true, man. I mean, can you imagine that city though, with her going back and the Final Four returning to that city? I mean, I can imagine like they're going to be waiting with like billboards, restaurant signs will be saying "Welcome back home, Paige Beckers." I mean, it makes me want to like just come to your house now, pick you up, Ryan. Let's just go to Minnesota and watch the Final Four.
yeah. I mean, I'd be down. Let's go. Let's go. But yeah. I mean, it must be so special for Paige Beckers to be able to play in the Final Four where she grew up and went to high school. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine what the scene would be like if they're able to win the NCAA championship in Minnesota. But they still got to win 2 more games to be able to do that. So it's going to be an absolute battle for them to be able to go through Stanford and then of course, South Carolina, or Louisville and Michigan, the game going on right now. So,
and Jakia, shout out to North Carolina State's Jakia Brown Turner, Ryan. She had 20 points in this one. I mean, so you are leaning towards the conversation of it's going to be a struggle for Gino to try to find an answer because as you saw, Brown Turner was very tough to guard in this ball game. Very good player for North Carolina State, as all of them on the roster. But Ryan, is that a major point of focus now? If in fact Dorka is done for the season, it's tough.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely going to be a lot tougher now, but I think it's just going to be the same story for UConn is that if they continue to create turnovers and Nika Mule as well, I want to bring her up. Whenever she didn't play a lot of minutes during this game, but when she comes on the floor, she provides so much energy to this team, getting steals, creating turnovers, and all the players on the team really feed off of her energy. That was so fun to watch tonight out of her. Big East Defensive Player of the Year and Nika Mule. So, if the whole team can feed off of that energy and play like that for the whole entire game on defense, it's going to be tough, but I think they can do it. They've been tested this whole season. They battled through everything. And the UCF game, I think, really got them ready and prepared for this game against NC State, the way they fought off UCF. So, I think they're pretty much ready for anything now, being able to win it in double overtime against NC State. But, the game against Stanford, it's going to be a tough one.
Oh, it's crazy because in the sports world, yes, they just defeated a number 1 team in double overtime, Ryan. But now you have a different kind of number 1 team. And that's what you call the defending champions, Ryan. It's time to face number 1 Stanford. Thank you all for tuning in. Listen up with Phil and Rye, presented by Dempsey's in Sportsland. Ryan, hold your breath. It's going to be tight, man.